This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 460 for Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this week is Stephen ESC, and you can use that name to find him on social media and on Twitch. And I believe, sir, that you've been building some Lego on Twitch.
I have, indeed.
What's the set again?
An out of circulation Mini Cooper. The
Mini Cooper, that's what it was.
Trying to remember. I think somebody called it British Racing Green, and I'm not sure if that's an actual color or not, but it's a very deep green color. It's it's pretty beautiful. I'm pretty pleased with it. So it just
nice.
Finished that off last stream, and it's looking pretty. I was going to say pretty something, but it's looking pretty on my shelf behind me.
Pretty green. It's looking pretty fast and green,
right.
I would imagine. I know what you mean.
Yep.
And now that you said Racing Green, for two reasons. One, because I play Forza Horizon 5. Well, actually 4
right.
specifically, because 4 was set in the UK. But I've also seen that Lego set probably before it was out of circulation. So I know which one you mean now. And I remember that you mentioned it was the Mini. That's awesome. I'm glad. How big is that, like, compared to like the Vespa that you talked about on the show before?
The Vespa is about. Sorry, the sound goes a little weird. I'm turning around. It's about, let's say, a foot long, including the basket in the back. But the Mini's probably, let's say, 7 inches ish from front to back.
Okay, so a much smaller build considering that it's a car compared to the Vespa. The Vespa is a much larger scale.
Yes, but I did receive 2 gift cars in the last little while. So I have the out of circulation Volkswagen Beetle coming, and I have just yesterday or Monday, I forget now, got Ecto 1.
Nice.
So
Ecto
I've
1.
got some Lego streams ahead of me.
That's awesome. Ecto 1 looks like a fun build. And that's not a small one either. That feels like
it's about 18 inches long when it's all done. Front
to
back.
Wow. Yeah. So not minifig scale. That's like a proper like UCE collection or 18 plus kind of Lego.
I can drive it.
Yeah. You could say, yeah. The Ecto 1. And what was the other car?
The blue Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh, the Beetles, right? The Volkswagen Beetle. Yeah. That'll go nice with the Vespa. The
agreed.
Beetle.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which one are you working on again? It's the shuttle, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Friday Let's Chats, my Lego stream on Fridays has been the NASA Shuttle Discovery for the last 3 weeks, I think. Yeah. So the first week was all the Hubble telescope, which is the payload or one of the most famous payloads of the Discovery. I love that they put these little tidbits in the book. As you're building it, there's little like, did you know that like the hull of the space shuttle reaches like 14,000 degrees on its re-entry? I was like, of course I didn't know that. That's cool. But like, they always ask like, did you know? It's like, no, I'm not a NASA engineer. So the chances are, no, didn't know that. But it's
the
fun
funny
stuff.
thing is when you were streaming, I had you on in the background and I didn't know that you were reading these things on occasion. So it just in the background, you're just building stuff and you said, did you know? When you read this thing, I'm like, wow, he's really knowledgeable. And I had no idea it was actually in the booklet.
Oh yeah, no, they're little blurbs. You got to keep an eye out for them as you're building different steps and stuff. Usually, like every bag, there's like one little tidbit of stuff, and there's also like a big. When you deal with these ones that are like movie based, you might actually experience this with the Ecto 1 car because obviously the people that design them and engineer them at Lego are fans, and then they're also designers, and so there'll be a blurb at this beginning like explaining why they made the design choices they did, and then throughout like for example when I did the DeLorean, the time machine for Back to the Future, there's all these little tidbits about like what was used for what props, the fact that like the Mr. Fusion is really like a blender that's been turned upside down and attached to the car, like just stuff like that is really interesting.
Yeah.
And so any kind of movie prop, you're going to have all these kind of neat behind the scenes, not like science technical stuff, but just like, they used to cover the car in dry ice to make it look like it was hot when it came out of, like, it would always be smoking when it came out of the time travel, but they put it, or they wanted it to look either cold or hot depending on what it was doing, and it was really interesting. I think it was cold.
That is really
because
cool.
I think they wanted like the doors. I think I remember the doors opening and there was like icicles on them or something like that. But it was pretty fun. So I'm doing the NASA Space Shuttle Discovery, and
Right.
I'm currently 2 sessions in, and I'm still only really on the base of the shuttle. I think I've completed like the leading edge of the wings, and that's about it. It'll
How big
be
is that when it's done?
22 inches long.
Holy smokes.
Oh, it's large. Yeah, I cannot fit it in the shot. As I'm putting pieces like on the main bed of it, I have to kind of position it in a way that it just sort of fits in shot. Otherwise, I can't have pieces, what I'm building, and the actual model in the shot at the same time. It just doesn't fit. With the book. The book takes up a lot of space too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's the biggest that I've ever built. It's I think I want to say Optimus Prime was like 1,800 pieces, and this is 2,300 pieces. So this is the largest that I've ever attempted. But it's cool. Yeah. And I mean, as you probably know, having just put together the Mini, inside when they want to do specific spacing or they want to do something, with like the wheels or something like that, they use like different color Lego than you'd expect. Right. And it's for clarity of the instructions, so that you put the bright blue pieces in specific places so that you can attach something to them later that needs to be important. And you never see them because, at the end, it looks like a nice British racing green Mini. But I'm doing the space shuttle and I've got green pieces, I've got beige pieces, I've got bright red pieces, yellow pieces. And if you look at the finished model, it's all white and black. Right. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. But so far it's been fun. Really interesting connections. The landing gear was, I think, the thing that I put together last time. So that was really fun.
Any kind of mechanism to the landing gear that allows you to lower them, or do you have to kind of open them all individually?
So at the moment, the rear landing gear appears to have a mechanism, but it's not built yet. Okay. And then the front landing gear, the mechanism is really interesting. There's a back flap to the shuttle, and this is just a function of the Lego model. If you push in on the back flap towards the nose, there's a piece of Lego plates that is as long as the shuttle, and it puts pressure on a spring, and then the front landing gear flips down. Look, yeah, like it's really, really cool. If I think of it, I'll send you the moment in the VOD on YouTube where like I actually realize what's going on. And so it doesn't lower the landing gear gradually. There's a spring that you have to put pressure on by snapping pieces together, and it kind of snaps down. But it's interesting because like the tidbit in the assembly instructions was that, did you know that the landing gear on the space shuttle was only designed to come down? Once down, it can't be retracted, right? It has to be manually put back in for the next shuttle launch, right? Because it's not meant to take off again, right? Like the shuttle is essentially a glider, a powered glider coming back down to Earth. To get it back up into space, it has to go on a rocket. It doesn't need landing gear to take off again, right? So I just thought that was interesting. It was just because, again, like the mechanisms to do that all add weight to the shuttle. So it's like, well, if we don't need it, then we just won't put it on.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting. But apparently it did something like 40 space flights.
Wow.
The only thing you hear about in the news is like the first one and the last one, and anything that's like really cool, like Hubble. But they, like I didn't realize it was 40. Well, we'll have more Lego to talk about later because foreshadowing for the Internet Minute later in the show. But breaking news, you and I were informed by my lovely Discord for the Citadel Cafe that the Nintendo Direct was today, and you apparently took it in.
I did, as best as possible. Admittedly, I have a fairly narrow focus on, I guess, the games I'm looking forward to. So there were a number of them that they announced that just, I guess, didn't sort of catch my fancy. Like there's sort of Fantasy Life, and I think there's one called Raincoat, and things had a lot of cool looking, I guess, character design to them. and one that actually looked like it was going to be a really cool and well animated game, but those ended up being the between gameplay shots, and then it was just a turn-based thing with a lot of dialogue in it. So it looked very cool, and then it wasn't. So
Right.
I guess for me, the highlights for it for me were basically well, I was hoping to get more Mario Kart news because they're releasing 8 new tracks every 4 or 6 months now, I forget, but essentially we bought the pass that gives us 8 new tracks 6 times over the course of 2 years. So it's essentially doubling the number of tracks you can play for, I think it was just $25 extra.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it was just, as soon as we found out the price, it was a no-brainer. So the game itself with tax was, I think it was around $92 Canadian. So then to be able to spend, I guess 25 plus tax, around $30, and then you get essentially a second version of the game on top of it, all built into the same game. It's totally worth it. So they did announce one track, which is Yoshi's Island. It's a new track that's not been on any device before. They bring back a lot of them. Like they might have one from the original Game Boy or Game Boy Advance that they will then convert over to look better and use the mechanics of the current game.
Okay.
So, and that's what they do a lot of the time. So like the base set for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe includes a lot of previous levels. So every once in a while through these new releases, they've been including a new one. So that's going to be it. Yoshi Island, but they have not announced the other 7 yet, so we have to wait. But they introduced Birdo, which is I'm not sure if you remember playing Super Mario Brothers 2, but when he was basically was the Dreamscape
Yep.
game.
Yep.
So Birdo's from that, and that's I think Birdo first appeared, they said, in an earlier, was it a Game Boy Advance game or something like that? Either way, so Birdo's back.
Okay. Yeah. Birdo. I know who that is now. Yeah, I didn't know the name, but I absolutely recognize the character. Yeah.
The one that shoots the eggs at your
face. Yeah. Weird. Really.
Yeah.
You'd like at the time when you're playing these games as kids, you're just like, yeah, sure, this is what's up, right? We'll keep on going. But then you look back at some of these characters as an adult, you're like, that is an odd looking, looks like a Muppet almost.
Yeah.
Really, really strange. I remember Mario 2. I do remember Mario 1, but not because I liked it, only because it was all that we had. And then
it's so
the
true.
one that I spent the most time with and have the fondest memories of is the Super Nintendo, the Super Mario World. That's the one with the cape and Yoshi. Like that's my nostalgia jam. Yeah. I do remember spending a lot of time with Super Mario 3 though. The raccoon one. Is the Tanuki suit, I think is what it was called.
Tanuki suit, yeah.
I really liked that one. But again, it was, the character was bigger, the colors were brighter. It was still a Nintendo Entertainment System game, but it was pretty good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Super Mario World is the one that I really, really like.
Super Mario 64 was, I think, one that I spent a lot of time on as well. Whichever the first one was that allowed you to kind of like 3D run around. And I don't know that I liked it a lot, but it was the novelty of it being the first one to do that. I remember really enjoying that. Yeah, but speaking of the older games and the retro side of things, they also announced that Game Boy, I believe it's all Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games, are going to be coming to the Switch as well. So they have got a lot of Nintendo games, a lot of Super Nintendo games, and then they've just released the game. I don't know if they've released them yet. I have to go back and check the date, but either way, Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games are coming to it as well. And so I've been telling myself I wanted to go back and play through all of the Legend of Zelda games and go back and play through all of the Metroid games. So the fact that now they're putting the Game Boy versions of these in as well, if I truly wanted to, I could go back and do Legend of Zelda all the way through up until Breath of the Wild and the new one. They had a trailer out for the new one again for the Tears of the Kingdom. That I think it's the second trailer release, which just looks super cool.
I always kind of get on the fence about this kind of stuff because I can appreciate the fact that this stuff is accessible. The games are old enough and they don't require a lot of hardware. On Xbox, which is the system that I have, you have a lot of retro games that are either really cheap to buy, they're like $5 or $10, or they're accessible through Game Pass. But I'm sitting there with a top of the line gaming console and I pay monthly for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and I just don't want to sit there and play like Turtles in Time or, some other pixel game.
I think it's different for you because you've got the console. Like your system is a console and it's hooked up to, is it a 55-inch?
Yes, yeah, 55,
4K
4K.
screen with like just
Yep.
yeah. So it's you have a brilliant setup to watch high res, really brilliant, high action games and really enjoy them. Where the Nintendo Switch still I can do it handheld, and you make a good point, but the retro games feel very at home when I'm just using it in the handheld mode as opposed to having it up on the TV.
Right.
But I can totally see what you mean though, having the 8-bit games.
And I know I've said this before on I think on stream and probably in the render distance on the Spawn Chunks, and that's I also get a lot of 8-bit kind of visuals with Minecraft, and so I'm usually kind of done with that. Like I tried one called Eastward. It's supposed to be a really quirky story-based game. It's pixel art. You kind of walking around, hitting bad guys with a frying pan. You're some guy that lives in a trailer in a small town. It's all really quirky and weird, and you're in a mine. It's like some dystopian future thing. Pixel Riffs played it and really liked it. And I'm playing it's like it's fine, but I'm just like, why am I sitting here doing this on the Xbox when I could load up something like Forza Horizon 5? And even though there's not exactly a story, I'm kind of just cruising around and racing cars and doing whatever. It's a lot of eye candy. And I think that you're right.
Yeah.
Like there is always that draw of like turning on the LEDs behind the TV and have everything glow and react and do stuff. And just, yeah, I can see the draw for people that enjoy the nostalgia games, but I just have never been into it. But I do find, to my point that I wanted to make, that Nintendo and Xbox and the gaming companies, especially anything that has gaming as a service, they're leaning hard into these. We already own these IPs. These games already exist. We can just re-release them on these new platforms. And while that's great, there's a lot of other people out there that want new games that are just like, all right, fine, but like, what's new? Like, what are you bringing out that's new? And they don't seem to have a lot these days.
They did announce a bunch of them, but it was just I don't know, not my thing.
They don't appeal to you. It's like me watching, first-person shooters or like zombie, 4v, not 4v4, but like 4-player co-op horror survive, don't get eaten by Dracula games. I'm just like, they're all the same. They all look the same. They're all dark. You can't see anything. It's supposed to be scary. Like it's not what I want. I mean, every once in a while there's a Halo Infinite or there's a Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and that's fine. But I just find that they're so far in between. Did anything that Nintendo announced that's new strike your fancy? Like, were there games that did catch your eye?
I was trying to find the name of it before I came on here, but I couldn't find it again. But there's one that had a really cool animation. Actually, there was one that they did show just in the slew of them at the end of it, and it looked like black and white drawings of animals kind of going through an adventure together. And I didn't get a sense of the gameplay because they were just showing it on the screen, but it looked visually very cool. Just one of those ones that it looks so unusual, but well rendered and well done that I wanted to. I'm going to go find out more about it. There just wasn't enough time between the Nintendo Direct dinner and blah 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 before we could record tonight to go and research it properly. But it did catch my eye and it looked very cool. And I guess the other one is Splatoon 3's got some downloadable content coming in. While I don't play it very frequently, my sons love it. So that one, I definitely paid attention to that one because it's one that they love. And it did have a cool looking level in it because it's sort of Nintendo's first or / third person shooter game. It's very cartoony, very, very fun, paintball-y kind of thing. But one of the levels that's coming out soon is called Side Order. And the world is just shades of white and gray, and they didn't really get into it a whole lot, but it's interesting because everything that the Splatoon characters, like their weapons, are just ink. So I'm curious to know how like their colorful ink is, how that's going to play into this new world, because it looks like nothing else that they've got in the game so far. So I thought well, like I said, while I don't play the game very much, this really intrigued me. I'm just from the creative side, I'm wondering what they're going to do with it.
Interesting. I'm popping onto the Nintendo Direct site now, and unfortunately they have the descriptions in big bold letters, but then the titles of the games are all like little images. It's a little graphic design of whatever the cover art is. And sometimes like Illusion Island is like a Mickey Mouse game and I can read that okay, but a lot of the titles are so tiny that I can't make out what they are. I was going to fire a couple of titles at you, say, was it this one? Was it maybe that one? But I can't even read them. So, but I see what you mean though about a lot of these look like those turn-based 2D animated, like lots of cool animations in between the gameplay, but not actual gameplay, like Fire Emblem and there's a couple of other things that are.
Oh, there it is, Harmony. That's the one that has very
okay.
cool character design and animation.
Okay.
But it was all cutscenes.
Yeah.
It looks like.
Yeah.
I still might check it out if there's a trial for it, just to see. And I guess the problem like with games though, like if you don't have them on like the Xbox Pass like you're talking about, each one of these are, $80 or 80 something dollars plus tax, so they're just 92 something or just under $100 for a game that you don't know whether you're going to like or not, and that's just a lot to shell out for a game. So
that is the advantage of the Xbox. I do have kind of like a paralysis of choice when I go through the Game Pass stuff. However, they let you have like a favorites list, like you have like a play later list. So if you see something and you're like, I want to return to that when I'm in the mood for that kind of thing, you can bookmark it, which is nice.
Right. That is cool.
But there are some things too that they'll have like in the Xbox store, and new games a year later you can get for like $40, $30 if they're on sale. And I have seen some day one titles released for like $40 for Xbox because they're indie games, like they're a cool platformer, or they're a take on a shooter that's cartoony or weird or something. And so there are some games that come out that are cheaper. I want to say even the full titles, like, I mean, some things are part of Game Pass, like say Halo Infinite, but Halo Infinite was like $69. It wasn't like 90. I noticed that when I was looking, because I was talking to Ryan Murphy about it, has multiple systems, and he always just kind of groans when he has to go buy a Nintendo Switch game because they're so much more expensive than say something for PlayStation or whatever. And it's funny because they're not like, it doesn't have the same performance that the Xbox or PlayStation 5 has, right? Xbox Series X, I should say.
Oh, I found the name of the game. It's the black and white one's called, appropriately it's called Blanc, the French for white.
Oh, okay.
So it's just, on the page, if you're still there, if you scroll to the very bottom, there's more games on Nintendo Switch. And it shows
okay.
You can see the little.
Oh, I see. Yes. Thumbnail. Yeah. Oh, that does look neat.
And Have a Nice Death. That's a black and white game as well, which looks pretty comical, actually. I've
seen the trailer for that. The animation in that looked very, very good.
Yeah, so I am looking forward to that one coming out. I forgot to mention that one. That one caught my eye again. It made me laugh to see it. Yeah. So I think it'll be a cool one to try out.
I'm not always a platformer person because they do feel a little bit retro, but when they're new platformers and they take advantage of all of the things that a new system has to offer, like frame rates and depth of field and all that kind of stuff, like Ori and the Blind Forest is a really good example. It's a very simple sort of concept in terms of like, it's a side scroller, but it is beautiful. And
thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, and it's bright and shiny and things blow up and like it's very, very cool. Also very chill, Something else that I meant to ask you, Minecraft Legends is coming to Nintendo Switch. That comes out on April 18th. And that is something I don't yet know about cross-platform, but that is going to be everywhere. That's going to be on PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Steam, Xbox. It's part of Game Pass. It's part of PC Game Pass. So I'll have access on both PC and on the Xbox. But if that's something that is cross-platform, then that would be fantastic, because that would mean that like you and I could team up and do co-op Minecraft Legends, like strategy game stuff. So that is going to be really interesting to see when that comes out. And Xbox, Microsoft did a developer direct last week, I want to say, and the first game that they talked about was Minecraft Legends, because of course Microsoft owns Mojang Studios, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that it's coming across to Nintendo as well. And I mean, to have a game it's not just Minecraft, it's Minecraft in the Minecraft world, but it's a strategy game. It's a action strategy, I think is what they're billing it as. So that should be an interesting thing, and an opportunity to play with friends, where in Minecraft it's not always possible. Like sometimes everybody has their own creative thing that they're working on, and so to be able to still be in that cool world, but then have a much shorter game loop, like it's going to last 40 minutes, and then you either play another match or you play tomorrow, like that kind of stuff. Should be
and
be
you have no choice but to have a common goal, because there's a common foe on the go, or there's something happening that you got to take care of. So
it's either another player and the piglins, or you're just fighting the piglins together.
I have sort of reserved excitement for that game, just because I haven't played many games like that, so I'm not sure that it's going to be my thing. But I do personally, I love I wish normal Minecraft was rendered that way.
Yeah.
My son, my older son, he just keeps going, nope, no. The thing about Minecraft, it's the blockiness. That's where it is. And I no, I get it.
I get the blockiness.
I get it. But I'm also a fan of cartoony stuff, and and that feels like the perfect mix between. And he just keeps going, nope, gotta have the blockiness.
So no, the thing that I split the difference on is the rendering. It's the lighting. Right. Yeah. So I don't mind the blockiness of Minecraft. I've kind of come to enjoy it, but I want shadows and sunbeams and atmosphere and lighting and like all that stuff. That's where Minecraft to me feels dated, really, really dated. And that's where games like Minecraft Dungeons or, where Minecraft Legends really, really shine. And another thing that they could do to Minecraft without doing any of the rendering is animate stuff properly. One of the complaints that we've been hearing on the Spawn Chunks and in the Minecraft community is that the new sniffer mob, looks cool. It's really big and it's really, really well animated. And that's not a complaint until you look at a cow. And the cow looks freaking ridiculous. Like it doesn't even have knees, right? And you can animate these things to make them look like they have better joints and things like that. And there are some plugins and mods like they rely on Optifine, so we don't use them on the Citadel, but there's a mod on Hermitcraft or a data pack that's like better animations, and it makes like the villagers have eyebrows that go up and down, and creepers actually look like they're walking. They're not on a treadmill, like all that kind of stuff. It's just really simple things. They don't change the model. They don't make it look like a brand new game or anything futuristic. They just like make things have weight and timing and personality. And it makes a huge difference. And so I wish we had access to that on Citadel, but they don't make it for Fabric. I don't think. I need to look to see whether there's an option for that. That might be kind of fun. I don't think I have the time to make one. Otherwise I would.
Oh, that'd be impressive.
Well, I mean, just animation background, like there's some stuff like that. When you're only talking about like loops and walk cycles, like it would be fun to kind of get in there and have some fun with that. I would start with something small,
That'd be really cool, actually.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I always get caught up in like I just don't know how to code that kind of stuff because I would like to do some custom things with just models for us. Anyway, all that and more on the last 2 episodes of the Spawn Chunks, which have been guest interviews, which I guess is something that I
good cross promotion.
Yeah, I haven't talked about this because we haven't done a show in a month on the Citadel Cafe. But Johnny, my co-host on Spawn Chunks, is traveling, and so Mythical Sausage was in last week, and then this week Fwip. Both of them are Empire's SMP server mates of Johnny, and they came in to fill in as co-hosts on the show. And true to form, Johnny decides to travel, and Minecraft drops the biggest news in the last couple months with armor trim and all the customizations that are coming along with it. So Mythical and I had a good talk about that, and then Fwip and I talked about story in Minecraft and building story in the world, and touched on some things that changed about armor trim as well. But it was a couple of fun conversations about all that kind of stuff. And Mythical and I got into some customized modding sort of thing. Remind me to show you the magical staff that he had commissioned someone to build him for his Minecraft character. On Empires, they all have like, they're all kind of RPing as emperors or as leaders of their own empire, kings, queens, whatever that happens to be. And Mythical Sausage wanted a wizard wand, or a wizard staff rather, for his character, and he a very talented artist and modeler made one, and it looks like what you'd expect it to look, but it still looks very much like Minecraft, which is a hard thing to pull off, because once you start putting new things in Minecraft, they start to look modded really fast. And this, it's obviously modded, but only because everybody knows it doesn't exist in the game. But if it did, you would imagine this is what it should look like. Like it has that same sort of design aesthetic that Minecraft does. But anyway, this will turn into a Minecraft podcast if I'm not careful. And there's a whole other website for that, folks. To complete the crossover, Lord Valor is actually a member of the community and a fan of the Spawn Chunks and a supporter of the Citadel Cafe as a cafe barista and a emailer this week on the Citadel Cafe. The subject of the email is giving the boys another chance. Hello, Joel and Stephen. Happy New Year, and thanks for the years of entertainment your podcast has given me and so many other listeners. Well, thanks very much.
Nice.
Right before the new year, I signed up for Amazon Prime. One of the first things I started watching was The Boys. I first heard about the show from this podcast. Episode 334, published on September 2019, was the last time it was mentioned. So here's my question. Would you guys consider going back and finishing the show? If I remember right, I don't think anyone on the podcast finished it, though if I'm wrong, please correct me. The Boys surprised me with how much I enjoyed the storyline, character development, and writing on the show, while sometimes hitting very close to real life issues and being super on the nose. It is somehow the most genuine show I've seen. If you have finished the show, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for all that you do, Lord Valor. Thanks for the email, Lord Valor. I appreciate it. And I love getting emails on the show. It's new in the last couple of years that we've been receiving so many emails. So listeners, if you have thoughts, by all means, thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Fire them my way. Happy to hear from you. I will keep my response short and sweet. I am unlikely to return to The Boys. It's just a long running thing with me. I don't generally like anti-heroes. I find shows like The Boys that glorify violence and disturbing behavior. From the few episodes I've seen, I don't think I even finished the first season. It's all written kind of within the skin of pop culture. Superheroes are hot now. Thank you, Marvel. And then they just have a bunch of people acting absolutely horrible to one another. And I just, it's not what I want to escape. If I want terrible people, I'll just turn on the news. So that's, and I have a hard time even enjoying Deadpool sometimes, like I like the character. I like some of the jokes, but then I find that they take it too far and it takes me out of what I want from a movie like that. And I flip flop constantly on whether I like, I think I like Deadpool, but I don't like Deadpool movies, or I sometimes don't like Deadpool movies. So I'm at right. That love-hate relationship. I'm struggling to think about another show that's like anti-hero type stuff. Which is funny because like you take a show or a movie series like John Wick, which I do really like. He's not a nice guy. He's a murderer. Like he's a hitman, but he's got a code. And I feel like that's the thing that I thought was missing from The Boys, is either they all are just morally corrupt, or if they have a code, it is fucked up. Like they are twisted, psychotic, broken people with superpowers. I'm just like, nope, I don't need to know what happens with this. So that's why I was out on The Boys. I'm unlikely to return to it. I hear for those that like it, it's good, right? And so I don't dismiss it as the show is terrible. I just know it's not for me.
I, on the other hand, I'm actually a fan of the show, and I've watched it through all the way so far. So, that said, I do agree with Joel. I find it overly violent, merely for the sake of being violent. Like it's gross and guts and like all kinds of stuff that it just does not need to be shown. I do, however, understand the violence to a degree. Just doesn't need to be so visually explicit. Because it's not that I like to see people injured and people killed and stuff like that, but the idea of superhero movies that you watch with zero collateral damage to people just seems so unrealistic to me. And it's not that I need to see people shot with laser eyes by Superman or accidentally shot. Like I was watching a movie a little while ago, they're just trying to get the bad guy. And so they're just shooting at the bad guy, but clearly those bullets that are missing are going to fire off into some building in the background. But they never address that kind of thing. And so there's something I do appreciate about including some sort of collateral damage in the fight between these super beings, because it's what would happen. And so, and if you're not going to show it, like you don't need to show it entirely, but just, there's a lot you can just cut away when things happen. They do that in other movies, and I don't know why they don't do it here. So I don't know, but it's one of those things where if they would just tone it down, then I don't think I'd have a problem at all with the show. It's sort of like on the lines of Invincible. You weren't a huge fan of that, right, because it's gratuitous violence as well, and I agree that is over the top, but that one, in my mind, I sort of see it the same way. It's like that's the sort of stuff that would happen when you have two invincible godlike characters battling each other without any real regard for the people around them. Stuff's gonna fall, people are gonna die. It's just, but it seems, I guess in the stuff that I've seen and watched, it seems rarely addressed. A couple of times in the Marvel movies with like the because with the Sokovia Accords and things like that, but it just felt like it was rare. It was just all of these big things crashing and just, I don't know, felt like it was rarely addressed. So I do really like how the show explores the kind of the corrupt underbelly of the supers, because they're basically unstoppable. So they get all of these product deals, TV shows, and movies. They can basically get whatever they want, because who's going to say no to somebody who would just vaporize you in a second, kind of thing. So it's an interesting storyline, and the fact that you find out, if you're not going to go back to it, I mean, can I give you spoilers?
I don't care about spoilers. As long as we just warn the audience about spoilers, then yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Spoilers, folks. But you do find out eventually that none of these people are just naturally super beings. It's just a pharmaceutical company, Vought, created this drug that they tested on babies in order to try to create a people with superhero abilities. And so all of these people who develop superpowers later on just feel like they're special, but they're not. Their parents just took a whack of money in order to let their babies be tested on with quote unquote super drugs. So it's and so then Vought's actually sort of in control, and then the drugs were released to other countries to kind of create supervillains, so that they do still definitely need those superheroes in order to be able to fight the supervillains. So they kind of created this whole thing for the sake of profit, which may be part of what Lord Valor's talking about, with things that seemed like they could be very much on their nose and things that could definitely happen in real life. That felt like it was, I couldn't help but shake my head at it, but I was shaking my head at it because it's like, man, I feel like that's exactly the sort of thing that would happen in real life if somebody was able to make something that made people powerful. It would just probably play out almost exactly like this. So I would just agree with Lord Valor again on the character development. I thought it was pretty good nice to see the characters evolve over the couple seasons, but just the main character Butcher, I feel like he needs to evolve a bit more, because he seems like he's going to evolve and he goes back to his old, back to the way he was every single time. And then he looks like he's going to evolve, then goes back again, and then just keeps messing everything up along the way.
I do find that when I'm watching TV shows and there's a character that is one note, it starts to get really annoying. And I think it's because I find it boring. Like when they're on screen, you don't necessarily know what they're going to say, but you know the tone it's going to have, and you know the overall message, which is like me, all the time, me, or like insert trope here. And you're just like, oh God, like I get it. You're the selfish friend. Like, but could you add a little nuance to this so that I don't know exactly, I don't want to be watching a sitcom from the 90s in 2023. Like I want characters to have a little bit more than that. And that's, and again, sometimes shows like The Boys take longer to deliver that. But I think that when you have a show that violent, you end up turning off people that just don't want to stick through turning people into paste, like visually on screen. And it was the same thing. I never did finish Invincible because I just got tired of like these long drawn out violent scenes, and like I thought the characters were interesting, but you don't make me care enough. It's the same with Vox Machina, which is now back with a second season on Amazon Prime. Those that like it love it, but I'd rather watch something that takes itself just a little bit more seriously, and not have to deal with like the gnome making another phallic joke, like, because again, it's one note. Like and the thing is, like, and they're forced into situations where that's a really touching moment between these two characters. Look at the giant penis. It's like, oh my God, like, could you just give it a rest for just a nanosecond? And I don't know what it is about that kind of humor, but I find that once people find their audience for that, they never let it go. Like, it's just this constant.
They double down.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. And and that's what it's like. Well, and therefore the show, to me, the characters just never evolve. So that's where I check out. But good to know that someone that heard our opinions on the Citadel Cafe years ago, literally, that's a weird thing to say. And then went back and decided to check out the show despite the mixed feelings shared on the podcast. That's cool. I'm glad that you found something through the show. It's always nice to hear when someone that follows my Minecraft content has been inspired to go play or play with their kid or learn more about Minecraft or try something new. And it's always really cool when, we can get feedback from people in the community on the Citadel Cafe to say like, I'd never heard of this until you guys were talking about it. And oh my gosh, like I am just as much in love with this show as you guys are. Or I'll hear other things where, it'll be people chiming in saying like, yeah, I hated that too. Like it was, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on this show. I'm glad I'm not alone. Like let's say you and I really don't like something, but the rest of pop culture just adores it. And there's another person out there that's just like, I hate this. And I feel left out and weird that I don't like this. But then they hear you and I going like, no, don't like it. Yeah. No, sir. And
there are two other people.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of us. Yeah,
that's right.
So that's always really cool. So yeah, keep the emails coming, folks. Really appreciate them. Once again, that's thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. And speaking of spoilers, I want to give another spoiler warning. Finally, Stephen and I have the opportunity to talk about Wakanda Forever. It was released on Disney Plus on February 1st, a week ago. I'm hoping that people that were champing at the bit to see it have already seen it, and us having a week between its release and this podcast will be enough for the people really looking to go see it, enough time. If not, stop now, because there is not going to be a way to talk about this without spoiling key moments, all that kind of stuff. So I would hate to ruin it for anybody that has been looking forward to it.
So press pause, go watch the movie, and then come back and join us.
And I will say, as a big blanket statement, do watch it, worth watching, not one to miss for all kinds of reasons. It's not in my top 10, I don't think, for Marvel movies. But no. I did enjoy the overall experience. And I want to start by saying, I don't think the filmmakers had an easy task figuring out where to take Black Panther after Chadwick Boseman unfortunately died. I think you said it was 2020?
Oh, 100%.
When did he pass away? 2020?
2020, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, he died of colon cancer, I think. Which is just such a shame because he was younger than both of us, I think, and gone quick. From the release of the first Black Panther, I think he had one other role, and then he passed away. And it's just really unfortunate to lose an artist like that. Great actor, obviously a loved role, but also like what he was doing for, the Black community in Hollywood and his role in Wakanda and Black Panther, not just as the lead, but like as, a leader within the filmmaking community. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a shame.
And he seemed beloved by anybody who knew him. It's just seems so rare to hear in the Hollywood circles, but I've never ever read or heard an ill word against the man.
No, exactly. And I think that speaks a lot to his character, and I think that they did him justice in terms of how they handled the death of T'Challa, and because they don't pretend like he was alive, they don't do any flashbacks. They show some clips of Boseman from the first Black Panther film, and I think maybe I don't know if they got into any of the Avengers crossover. I think most of the footage was from the first Black Panther, but it's all none of the there's no CG. They're not trying to bring back moments that don't exist. It's just characters remembering things, and they're remembering things that you also have seen as an audience, which I thought that was really cool. And they don't pull any punches. That's the first 15 minutes of the film.
No, I thought they handled it really well as well. I thought it was a classy, like even the intro I thought was just a really classy tribute to him as well, because in the as he's passed away, then they usually have all of the Marvel comic book overlays as the words as the words come up at the beginning of the credits, but it was all Chadwick Boseman seeing shots and scenes and pieces of script that he spoke in the background and going in the background and stuff, and it had this kind of hue of purple to it as opposed to red, so it just felt I just thought it was classy. It was a really, really nice way to start off the movie.
Yeah, it was definitely on brand. I feel like Marvel did that when Stan Lee passed away too, they had. It was brightly colored, but it was all kind of like, it was all Stan Lee cameos, I think, within the letters of the Marvel logo as it was forming. So the movie opens with a really tense scene of Shuri trying to fabricate the heart-shaped herb, and I didn't know what the hell she was doing. I thought she was trying to make a heart valve. And I was like, what is she trying to do? I couldn't understand what they were saying because of the accent. And I didn't remember that all of the heart-shaped herb from the first Black Panther was destroyed. Didn't remember that.
Okay, gotcha.
So I was like, what? I was confused for the longest time. It wasn't until someone else said the word later in the film, I was like, oh, heart-shaped herb. Oh, I remember that now. I was lost for the first act. I was like, I don't understand what the hell's going on. But it once it clicked, I was like, oh, that's what she was trying to synthesize. I understand it now. And I think while I applaud a lot of the Marvel stuff for not like over explaining what's happening in terms of the science, unfortunately, I think now post Endgame, there is some serious advanced technology happening in the world of Marvel. And Wakanda's always been miles ahead of everybody anyway. And I feel like they kind of glaze over it a little bit too much. Like there used to be those cool nerdy scenes when like Shuri was explaining to T'Challa what the hell was going on with like the suit or whatever. And so you, the audience, understood what was going on. But without that conversation, it just kind of was lost on me what the heck was going on.
Yeah. I guess it's the expectation that you've seen them all already and you remember them all.
Yeah. All 20 films in my brain. Sure. Nope. Not even close. Yeah.
No problem.
I mean, I think I've only ever seen Black Panther twice. Like I think I saw it in theater and then I saw it again when it was released on Disney Plus or whenever I had the opportunity.
I may have seen it 3 times. It's my favorite standalone film of the bunch.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's very good.
I'd say.
Yeah. Very, very good. I'm going to start with a couple of things that I feel kept me from pushing this into my top 10. Because overall, I think emotionally, in terms of like what they were trying to set out to do, I think they did a really, really good job. And that's why I liked the movie. But there were things that kind of like pulled me back to say like, well, I don't love it. And I think a lot of it had to do with some plot bits that didn't make a lot of sense. I feel like Namor, the villain in the film, really kind of missed the mark. Did you find him a good villain?
I didn't mind him as a character on his own. But I don't, having a flying, immortal, godlike person being the leader of underwater people felt
right?
Disconnected.
Yeah.
Like they talk about later in the story about because he's an underwater person as well, he can breathe through his skin and stuff like that. But it just felt like there was like, why does he fly around? Yeah. So I think he would have been, I actually liked him as a character. I thought he was pretty darn cool, but just, who he was representing or the people that he was representing, he didn't seem like, it wasn't somebody like T'Challa, one of the Wakandans representing the Wakandans. It felt like it was this flying god because he can fly and breathe above water and therefore more powerful than the water people. He's their leader, not because he's one of them leading them forward, but because he's superior to them and can do all the things that they can't. That's why he's their leader. It just felt like a weird, I don't know. I liked him, but felt like how they had him in it was odd.
There's a power balance there, or a power trip, I guess might be the better way to say it, because I felt the same way. I was just like, what? But he's not even a god. Like he says it himself. And I think this might be the first time in the Marvel universe they've used the word mutant, perhaps. Because he calls himself a mutant, because from what we've learned, his people and him were changed by mixing a drink, I think, out of a plant that grew from a rock that had vibranium in it from like ages ago, like Mayan temples, sort of like 1500 BC or 1500. I can't remember what they said.
Yeah, I think the bracelet that they were talking about was from that time, and it was his mother's. So it was hundreds of years anyway. Yeah,
exactly, if not 1,000. And so his mother was pregnant with him at the time when she took this tonic, and it allowed them to breathe underwater, but it stopped them from breathing the air. And sorry, it wasn't BC. It was around the time that the Europeans were conquering South America, because they brought smallpox. That was part of the
right. I think they said 1600s or
1600s.
Yeah.
Anyway, they escape the smallpox by going underwater, where they can't get sick and they can breathe underwater because of this, and they turn blue because of the vibranium in this plant.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't. He's not blue because he was in the womb. And so instead of being turned blue, he got wings on his feet, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that they actually work in the way that they do also doesn't make any sense. Like he flutters his ankles and he can fly like Iron Man.
Well,
nope.
I had issues technically with that as well. I mean, obviously he's been doing this for a while, so he's probably pretty good. But when Tony Stark was using just the foot blasters and basically has zero balance because he's being propelled into the air by his feet. Of course, they're going to want to go first, and the rest of his body trail behind. It's like, how do you propel yourself forward from your feet? So.
And when you say winged serpent god, I think like giant wings, fangs, like snake helmet. Like I'm thinking this is going to be crazy. I don't think hummingbird, right? Like I don't think like, ooh, threatening. Like they're just, Anyway, so I didn't find that all that appealing. And this could be just me not knowing the character from the comics and not having any expectations going into it. But the other thing I just found that he was kind of whispery. Like whenever he was talking, he was just always really calm. And there was a minute there where I thought they could do something different with, Shuri and Namor, Wakanda and Talokan, like talking instead of fighting. There was a couple of moments they were like, this is an interesting dialogue. This is a civil discussion. They're not screaming at one another. It's not angry acting. They're just talking politically about what the situation means to their people. But then he just turns into basically a psychopath that sees the only way to cure the world is to conquer it. Or, remove, instead of offering to help the people fix the world, he's just going to go over and rule the surface dwellers. We've seen it before. Thanos, how to fix the world, kill half the people. Like it didn't seem all that new. And I was a little bit, disappointed with that.
I guess so. I can sort of see where his rage came from, though, because, as you said, they were talking. He was bringing Siri to his people to show them around, show him the world, show her his world. And it seemed like they were making, great, discourse and progress in that sense. And then Nakia comes to rescue Shuri, and then it just kills a couple of his people and then just flees. So it's basically like he brought her there to try to make that connection. But then Wakanda, and he just lumped Shuri in with that, even though he had all this conversation with her, just into that. Just Shuri shows up, steals the scientist that they want to kill, and then basically just run off. So I can sort of see that being sort of the lighting the fuse that would cause him to want to attack Wakanda. But
he lit it first. He kidnapped her first. He didn't ask her to come. She
asked to come.
Yeah, but his solution was to kill the scientists. So they're trying to protect an innocent person. And instead of, she has to give herself up. And it's not like they brought her in like as a guest. She was still a prisoner. Both of them were still a prisoner. He kidnapped someone, tried to kill them. Wakanda tried to protect this person. Shuri goes in there trying to fix the situation. And then he's upset that someone came to rescue the princess of Wakanda.
Fair enough.
What did you think was going to happen? So I find I can see your point, but I also I don't get his motivation, especially because later on he's like, now we have to go to war with Wakanda. We have to wreak havoc on Wakanda and show them that we could smush them at any minute because they know about Talokan. Yeah, because you showed them. If you didn't show them anything, then this whole movie just doesn't exist. And so I found that some plots like that were empty. But the thing that carried me through it was seeing how Shuri was going to react to all of this, and all the while bottling up this rage that she has about her brother's death. And they don't say the gods, they say the ancestors, I think is what they say.
Ancestors,
yeah, ancestors. And she's like there's a line at the beginning of the movie like, I will believe in you ancestors if you just let me succeed in saving my brother.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. It doesn't happen. And so she's like, no faith, gone. And she's looking for it. And she's looking for faith in people. And she puts her faith in Namor mistakenly. And he flips almost moments later when she realizes, oh, you're not trying to fix anything. You're just yet another madman that we all have to contend with. Oh, great. And you're also super strong. And I don't have a Black Panther anymore. Like, sweet. You're the only thing that can stand up to you physically is a Black Panther. And I think they did that on purpose. They had to give the villain like these superpowers in order to push, basically have Wakanda have no hope, because no normal Wakandan can take on Namor. Because we saw, oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He's the guy we both like. The big guy,
M'Baku.
M'Baku, yes. M'Baku goes toe to toe with Namor at one point and gets his ass handed to him with like one punch. So you're like, oh, okay, so Namor is a problem. But yeah, and I think that in so many ways they demonstrate that the people of Talokan are superior in terms of strength and force and could wipe out Wakanda whenever they want.
Yeah, and numbers.
Yeah, and I don't know why they threaten Wakanda. Like, I don't know why, if they want Wakanda to work with them, I don't understand why they bring them to the brink and push them so far and then somehow expect them to say, yeah, I guess we'll work with you now. Like, because Namor needs them. And he says that, I need them. And it's like, but if you need them, wouldn't it be easier to just be friends with them and try to convince them? Like, I feel like if he needed them, I feel like the lie of what he was up to should have lasted a lot longer, right? Do you feel like we got that too early? Like, he flipped, like Shuri knew immediately after, she meets him, he takes her to Talokan, they have one more conversation and she goes, oh, you're crazy. This isn't going to work. And it just felt like it all happened in 15 minutes. It was longer than that, but like it felt like it happened right away. Whereas I feel like that he's crazy reveal would have been more of like a beginning of Act 3 sort of thing. I feel like if they paced it out, it would have been better.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see him as crazy necessarily, as much as him just
or delusional.
In his mind, Riri had to die. I mean, we'll come back and talk about Riri Williams later because loved her intro into the MCU, but I felt like he was not necessarily crazy, or I guess it depends on how you define crazy, but in his mind, it made sense to kill Riri. And he was just trying to, I guess, in some way, explain to Shuri why this is what had to happen. And it's that age-old philosophical question, kill one to save millions or just... or every single person is precious, therefore go to war and have maybe millions of people die. It's just
and that's reflected in Shuri's journey as well, right? With the final battle with Namor and her choice that she has to make, and the people that she listens to, when she's up against the wall and has to make that choice, thinking she's going to go one way and then she goes the other, which. Again, like, I'm glad they did it that way. I'm glad they didn't make her bad or anything like that. But I also kind of thought, like, well, she's not going to kill him, right? Like, it's a Marvel movie. Like, the hero has to be hero. You have to be good. You have to be a good person. And I did enjoy where they took Shuri. And the only real, I think, hang up for her arc throughout the movie was a bit of one track pony through the second act where she was just basically like angry Shuri all the time, and it wasn't going anywhere. And
let's go to war, Shuri.
Yeah, and I think that was just a little long in the tooth, but it was, I think, justified by the transitions later on, the balance that was struck later on.
Yeah,
they gave you a window into her inner turmoil later in the movie that make you kind of like forgive how long the angry Shuri stuff lasted. But had you known a little bit more, it wouldn't have been such a slog. I also chalked that up to how long the movie was. It was almost 3 hours. So that kind of felt long anyway. Like, I didn't finish it in one sitting. I had to pause it. I had to go do something. I think I had to eat dinner or whatever. Like, I couldn't finish it all at once. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me that made me feel, I don't want to say it was like necessarily, well, no, Namor was bad. But I found it confusing. Like there was choices that were
Yeah.
made where I just didn't understand why they were making it. The other thing was a much smaller section of the movie, but I feel an unfortunate kind of like waste of time was I really like Everett Ross. I'm a Martin
Yeah, me
Freeman
too.
fan anyway.
Me
And
too.
he was wasted on a movie long phone call. That's all he did. He was on the phone the entire time. And I just felt like he
Yeah.
was avoiding his boss or pretending to work with his boss who was pretending to double, triple, quadruple cross him. It just didn't. And his boss is his ex-wife. Like there was all this stuff that had absolutely, well,
Yeah.
he had something to bear because he was communicating the US political position on what was happening in Wakanda without having to go to showing like the president and the, all the council and like doing all these big White House shots, which would take away, I think, from the central conflict with Wakanda. And they cover that in the plot by Namor saying, if you tell anybody we exist, I will just wipe you off the face of the planet. It's like, well, because sure. Okay. Like that makes this even easier. Thanks for making it so easy to work with you.
Hmm.
So we get a lot of these phone conversations with Everett Ross, and I found him funny in some situations, but a lot of the time he's dealing with Valentina de Fontaine, who I despise. It's a terrible character. The writing is terrible. Julie Louis-Dreyfus phones in the performance. I did not enjoy a second of them on screen together. It just felt like forced sitcom bullshit to an otherwise like serious film, right? Like there was
Yeah.
war, there was loss, there was grief, there was trying to figure out who you are when you've lost everyone and everything. Like there was a lot going on in this film, and I appreciated the humor moments. Don't get me wrong. There are some wonderful light moments with Shuri and Okoye, which I cackled at some of them. They're really well timed. But the rest of it with Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus just fell flat. And I don't want more of the character. I hope Marvel shelves it. Like I just find a way
Well,
to not deal with it. I just can't stand her.
she's going to be around for a while. I was going
I
to say,
know.
I didn't mind it much. Actually, it was, I guess, almost didn't notice it much because it didn't seem very significant to the movie line. So my brain just didn't kind of process it as neither important nor wasting my time. It was just one of the things that was thrown in. But I think it felt like it was thrown in specifically to tie into later movies because
Right.
she's going to be putting
Yeah.
together like Marvel's Suicide Squad.
Right.
I forget what that movie's called, but basically, Bucky and the new Captain America, who's not Captain America anymore, U.S. agent, and then a handful of other kind of misfits are going to be kind of under her command in either a movie or a TV show going forward. I believe. I'll have to go back and check. It's been a while since I've read that, but they're kind of like, that's what that's leading to. So that's the tie into other movies right there.
It's the Thunderbolts, right?
Right, Thunderbolts. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's got I'm blanking on her name, and it's the Black Widow's sister. Yelena is the character's name.
Right, Yelena.
Yeah, Bucky
But
Barnes,
essentially, like
John Walker, and Red Guardian is the name of
Red Guardian, right?
of Yelena's dad. Yeah.
Marvel's Suicide Squad.
So those are the only real big complaints that I have. The rest of the things that I have to say about the movie are pretty positive.
Yes.
I'm kind of in the didn't care either way about Riri Williams. So you obviously have a different opinion because you know who she is. So what about Riri was so exciting for you?
Well, I haven't been able to get through the comics as much as I would have liked, but I just liked the idea of her as a character. I enjoyed her in the comics that I did read, where she's basically this, a young, brilliant, not even a scientist, I guess. They call her the scientist in this because that's what they believe she is, but she's a kid in school, and, a project that she did is what put her on the radar, or on the kind of the political world radar in terms of what was the machine was actually able to scan for and find vibranium, which nobody thought was possible. So I don't know. I guess for me, just because I'd been excited about her for a little while, it was great to see her come in. And what had me most excited is I thought she was probably just going to be a bit part in this, just like just, one of those little things that happens to tie her into the movie, sort of the same way that Charlie Cox, Daredevil, appeared briefly in the Spider-Man movie. He just barely had a part in it, but he was in it long enough to say, hey, everyone, Daredevil's coming back to the Marvel Universe. So I thought there was going to be just a similar little tie-in with her to then spin off into Ironheart later on. So the fact that she was actually a significant part of the storyline, I really enjoyed. So I didn't like her final iron suit as much as I thought I would. And I thought it was kind of silly that they had her kind of hammer out parts of it. Like she was actually physically hammering metal and then kind of welding cut out a heart to, like, we get it. You're literally doing the iron hammering and you're literally doing the heart. But then, Shuri's then over there having like these nanobots create this really molded shaped thing, and then it's being like spray painted as it floats in the air. So it's like, I don't understand why they had her hammer stuff in Wakanda when they can just go, hey, this is what I want it to look like on the computer. Print it. I forget the AI's name, but they can just say print it and have the entire thing kind of nanobot created the same way they do the Black Panther suit. So it felt, and it didn't look like it was very mobile. It had this very kind of just flying mech suit, which it didn't have the same kind of mobility as Iron Man suits did. And I just figured, if this thing was being designed and built in Wakanda, it would have been as usable and as flexible and agile. That's the word I was looking for. As agile as Iron Man's suit was. So those are a couple of things that kind of took me out of it. But I guess going back to your question, it's just, I was excited for her to appear in the MCU anyway. So the fact that she was, like I said, a bigger part of the movie than I expected her to be, I thought I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I thought they kind of ham-fisted her in. And that's because I don't know who she is. I don't understand why she has Stark Tech. Like, I don't know, because Shuri even says that. They walk into her workshop, I was like, is this Stark Tech? I'm just like, how did she get it? The last person that I saw that had Stark Tech that wasn't Tony Stark before he died was Peter Parker.
Yeah. Oh, she made it all, though.
I don't know why they used Stark Tech then. Like, I don't understand why they have like another Iron Man type person that, like, it doesn't make any sense, because I guess I'm not familiar enough with the character. So I don't think they did a good enough introduction to kind of like bring everybody up to speed. Because like you, I felt that everything she was doing, she's supposed to be this like genius, and everything looked like it was dinky toys. It didn't really feel super high tech. And I got that she was at the top of her class and that she helped develop this, scanner. So I knew that was her role there. I understand why they went to protect her, and I understood that role for her, but then I didn't understand why, when she was, as you said, if she's going to stay and fight alongside with Wakanda, why she made her own suit. Like, why didn't Shuri just give her one?
But the thing is, though, like, Shuri ended up sort of just giving her one anyway. My complaints were like, they showed her physically hammering out a piece of metal and like welding, cutting out a heart. But then the final thing was a very smooth, very sleek, very Wakanda-looking piece that had no traces of the thing that she was hammering, or the, like, I didn't get a close look, so I don't know if the really awkwardly cut out heart that she made appeared on the suit anywhere, but those two things that she was doing manually didn't fit the final look or aesthetic of what the Wakanda built piece was anyway. So like, it's almost like they just gave her makeshift work to do while the computer designed this super slick thing anyway. It was just,
yeah,
those scenes didn't connect for me. Like, if they had showed her hammering those things as a flashback back in the shop, like when she made her original one, like the makeshift one from the beginning of the movie, then that would make sense, showing her doing it there, but now her working on high-tech stuff in Wakanda. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I don't think that's what they did. And if that's what was in the movie and I just didn't catch it, then I'm an idiot. But I felt like she was hammering that literally in Wakanda. So the action of her doing that did not feel like it translated over to her final suit at all. It just visually didn't make sense at all.
And I feel like there was a design disconnect in general in the movie. Like, I found that the suits that Shuri was trying to push on the Kingsguard
Okoye.
Okoye and the other, and Okoye hates them, rightly so,
Yeah.
because they're different and they're not traditional, and she's fine with her spear and her skirt. She can still kick your ass. Like I said, I don't need a suit. But she ends up needing a suit in order to take on the Talokan, because a normal Wakandan is not strong enough, despite all the tech and the training. You need to have some super abilities to fight even the average person from Talokan. And those suits looked weird. Like there's nothing about them said Wakanda. It looked like an amphibian predator outfit.
It looked like an underwater suit as opposed to a Wakandan suit. I felt exactly the same thing.
It felt very, very strange. It didn't feel at all traditional in a way that so much of the costume design, set design, as futuristic as it can be, they still obviously have roots in, African culture and different, different walks of life and different influences, and all brightly colored. And I mean, the bright colors were still there, but like, you're right, it did feel aquatic because of how much blue and gold was in it. And it just didn't seem, I don't know. It felt like a strange suit of armor to put on Okoye. I think on top of not matching anything Wakandan, it didn't fit her either. Like it wasn't. She's so aggressive and like strong and confident, and the suit was sleek and stylish and fast, and like she has more of a I'll call it a strong stance. And this thing was more light on its feet, which didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I guess the more I think about it, I thought they were cool looking, just did not fit.
It's not a terrible thing. It's not ugly. It was just out of place.
That's a good way to say it.
And I think that, I mean, to talk about the suits, I thought it was really interesting what they did with Shuri taking on the mantle of Black Panther, which was, I figured that's where the movie was going. But once they got there, I was like, okay, well, they're doing it. So let's see. Because I was kind of holding out. I think we talked about this earlier in the year. Nakia. I wanted Nakia to have the Black Panther.
And I was saying Okoye. I was like, because that's what we saw a poster, or it was a still or something like that they showed. Yeah. I think it was a promotional artwork. And we felt that, or I felt anyway, that the Black Panther that they showed there looked slightly beefier than the actress Shuri. So that plays Shuri. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be her or not, but
it was camera tricks, man, because even in that Black Panther suit with all the digital muscles and extra padding, even in the physical suit, she is still very skinny. Yeah. And I mean, and she gets her power from the heart-shaped herb. I get it. Like, you don't need to be a big, beefy person to be Black Panther. And Chadwick Boseman was in good shape, but he wasn't like a big brick. Like, he's an athlete, Yeah. I did find it very funny that she's like spinning around and kicking the snot out of people, and she looks like she's gonna break her arm when she punches somebody. She's such a skinny looking. I know, Black Panther superhero, and I just kept on thinking she looked like a little black kitty cat because she's just such a small person. But I liked the suit. The suit looked cool. It didn't look anything like T'Challa's. It took in like, well, one, she's girl, so it's got a much different lines and much different fit, but it's also just, it had all these gold accents, and I thought that was really interesting, and something that they did that was very, very unexpected, and something I thought, oh, okay, points for being different here, because when she had her vision after taking the heart-shaped herb, she saw Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, which I don't think that was announced. I think that was a secret. Because I heard nothing about that before I went in to watch it. And I really enjoyed the fact that because of her heart being filled with vengeance and revenge and anger, that's who she saw when she went for her visions. And it was almost like a warning. It was kind of like the three spirits of Christmas Carol, like warning Scrooge about what's to come if you stay on this path. And I get it. And he wasn't like an asshole about it. He was still him. He was still Killmonger, but he was warning her, essentially letting her know, like, yeah, let's do it. Like, you want to be just like me, let's go. And it was essentially to say, like, no, don't kill Namor, because you will end up kind of like dark side, light side, dark side of the Force, And I thought that was really well done. And because of that though, like her suit had gold accents on it. And I was like, it's really sharp that they did that because it further separates her from T'Challa. And she's farther away from the path that he was walking. And I thought that they did a really, really good job with that. And I think that overall, Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri, did a really good job. Like
Me too.
she got handed a lot in this movie, and she handled it very, very well. And you get more from it in the final act, like when she becomes the Black Panther, when she has all of these emotions that she has to deal with, including the wrap up scene. I thought that is where they really brought it home. And like I said, that long second act of angry Shuri, kind of, you got a payoff with a lot more depth to the character. She returned to the likable character that you knew from the first Wakanda movie, right? From the first Black Panther. I don't know why I call it the Wakanda movie. Probably because this is called Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like they got her back to a likable character. And I think that's what they lost mid movie for me, was like, I didn't really like her. And I understood that a lot of bad shit happened to her, but like, I just didn't really like her. And until the end again. And then you realize that, you know, that she's coming kind of full circle.
Not a terrible arc to have her go to unlikable and come back.
No. I just, the thing is that I feel like, unfortunately, I've lost faith in a lot of modern filmmaking. And I got to remember that Marvel, you know, is still really good at this. I think though, when they're missing the mark on some of their TV shows, and when, some films like, you know, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness are not landing well with me, that I start to just like, don't do it, Marvel. Like, are you going to go down this I don't like Siri anymore road for like this whole film? Because I expect them to. So I'm surprised when they stick the landing, and I shouldn't be. And I think that's I guess maybe on me, but I think it's also just a track record that modern cinema has. It's not just at Marvel's feet; it's a lot of other movies too. Anyway, really enjoyed, you know, the full circle, especially the end when she finally gets her piece. There's a scene with her and her mom early on where her mom's trying to get her to be at peace and speak with the ancestors and go through the stages of grieving to make sure she can get over her brother's death, which she is obviously clinging to. And she gets there in the end. Unfortunately, during the course of the film, Queen Ramonda also dies. And so she's
that was unexpected.
Yeah, that was unexpected, and we can get to that in a second. But Shuri at the end with Nakia has a really nice landing. You know, she gets to remember T'Challa. She goes through the grieving process. She burns the burial burial robes that she wore at the funeral. All of these ritualistic things that kind of bring her to a state of mind where she's accepting the fact that her brother has died and she has to move on. And in that moment, Nakia brings out her son. And there's already been kind of a clear mention that Nakia and T'Challa had a relationship in between, you know, Black Panther and Wakanda Forever. And the moment that Nakia brings out her son, you realize that it's T'Challa's kid, right? Yeah. Like, you have to be a stone dumb not to catch it right away. Yeah.
Before she even says anything.
Yeah. So there's no big reveal later on when she says the name. It's more about anticipating what Shuri's reaction is going to be. And one of my favorite things, and I think something that speaks to the turning of the character in Shuri throughout the film, is I think it's the first thing she asks Nakia is, did my mother meet him? It's not like it's because Nakia answers all the questions that she's going to have immediately, like, why didn't you tell anybody? How come you guys didn't come to the funeral? Like, all that kind of stuff. Nakia gives that all in a monologue. She doesn't have to ask those questions anymore. But the first thing that she asks is not a selfish question. It's asking about her mom. And I thought that was like, okay, full circle, Shuri is back. She has a much broader perspective on everything now. And that moment just before, when she was remembering T'Challa, I thought was kind of like a really great way for Marvel to help and remember Chadwick Boseman with the audience. There's no music.
Little tribute.
Yeah, no music. It was all just scenes of usually Shuri and T'Challa together, doing different things, doing different cool, fun, smiley things. It wasn't all sad. I mean, it was sad because he was gone, but it wasn't like sad stuff.
Yeah, their own sibling handshake and stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. And I thought that they handled that very, very, very well. And
Me too.
It was a great kind of like close to the film. So that to me was just like, when it ends on a note like that, despite the fact that I had a lot of grievances with the plot and the villain and some of the motivation, I could kind of cling to Shuri's character arc and be like, okay, that bumpy ride in the middle was worth it because it got us to here in the end. And you can sort of see what Marvel's trying to do, because Nakia reveals that obviously the kid is also named T'Challa, and is the heir to the throne. So he is the rightful king, I guess, of Wakanda. I've got a funny feeling that Marvel is setting up the return to Black Panther down the line, where we'll end up with an adult son of T'Challa.
It's interesting, though. I hope they don't fast forward to that too quickly, because I think in the movie at the end, or if you saw the first one, then there was the scene where T'Challa fought M'Baku to be, I'm pretty sure it was to be, I'm trying to remember now,
King,
the ruler
king.
Or the king. And so at the end of this movie, they had the same thing where there's the battle that was supposed to take place on the waterfall, but it was supposed to be basically, I assume, Shuri and someone else. So when the ship opened and M'Baku came out and basically challenged, it's setting him up to be the king of Wakanda right now and allowing Shuri to just be, Princess Shuri, but the Black Panther. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do in terms of lineage from there on in. Is like their agreement that he's just going to rule for now until she's old enough to take over, or what does that mean, kind of thing. So it's I'll be curious to see how that plays out.
I think that the Black Panther is going to have a role in future Avengers movies as they roll into new Avengers memberships, and I think that they want to have the Black Panther be part of that. So by freeing Shuri up from having to always be in Wakanda, I think that that means that you don't have to constantly make up reasons as to why she's not there ruling the country. I think it frees her up for more stuff, which is cool. And I think that there will be an interesting return. But I like M'Baku a lot.
Me too.
Some of the laughs, the good humor in this movie. Because the more I dislike Namor, the more they showed scenes of M'Baku going like, "Kill the fish man." I'm just like, yes, kill the fish man. I like this guy.
That guy's screen presence, he's enormous anyway. Like, especially when they juxtapose him next to, or juxtaposition him next to Shuri. Like, she's tiny and he's massive, but they've got these scenes together. So he's just hulking over her. But just the lines that he gives, like you're right, they're funny, but it's just like Winston Duke. He's just, his presence on screen. I feel like I could watch his character all day. Just his lines, the pauses he takes, the way he delivers it. It's bang on. And I love that he came in the first time we saw him in this movie. He comes walking in eating a carrot, which is sort of like one of those joke throwbacks to Black Panther 1 when he threatened to eat their children, but he goes, just kidding. Or, we're vegetarians basically. So that's a little throwback to the vegetarian lines. Thought that was funny.
The only other, I guess, character that I want to touch on is Queen Ramonda, who I thought had a really stoic presence throughout the whole thing.
Oh my goodness.
Again, through the same issues that Shuri is dealing with, she's dealing with the death of her son, the death of the prince. She's now the queen, so she can't even really grieve because she's got to rule. Like, there's all this stuff that has to happen. Then she's got to deal with Namor, who shows up and threatens her, and she's got to deal with the it wasn't the United Nations, it was NATO, I think. I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember either.
What meeting it was. There was some political meeting in one of the first scenes of the movie, and she had to deal with it. And deals with it in a very forceful, but she deals with it in the right way. Instead of killing people trying to steal, stuff from Wakanda, she captures them and then dumps them back, in the faces of the people that sent them. Like, you sent these suckers to try to steal from me. Here they are, returned to you, alive. They didn't have to be, but here they are. Like, just that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really, really well done.
Me too, because it was France basically accusing her of not being forthcoming and sharing the resources. Yeah. And then that she was dangerous and Wakanda can't be trusted. Meanwhile, Ramonda brings her soldiers in and dumps them right in front of her and says,
I think she said, "You're welcome."
Yeah, je vous en prie. Yeah, je vous en prie. You're welcome. So just basically, here are your soldiers back. But holy smokes, though, Angela Bassett. Jeez, what a performance.
I understand that she did a good job. I don't. Is she up for an Oscar for it? Is that the buzz?
Well, she won the Golden Globe for the
Golden
role.
Globe. I thought Shuri was a better, but I guess it's supporting actor, is it?
That's what she was nominated for. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly got chills when she basically relieved Okoye from her role. I don't know. I thought it was pretty powerful. So then her performance was powerful, and she looked. I wouldn't say she looked jacked, but man, she looked like she was in wicked shape.
Oh, she's in phenomenal shape. She's a stunning woman. Like, I'm not saying the performance was bad at all.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
It didn't strike me. It didn't strike me as a runaway. Oh my gosh, nominate, for best supporting. I was just like, it was fantastic, but I didn't think about it as in that kind of way.
I thought it was great.
I think it's just because she's upset the whole movie. Like she's not the woman doesn't have a moment's peace. Which I mean, and to tip to everybody in the film, everyone that is in one of these main roles, anybody that had a relationship with T'Challa, it's just intense. The whole thing is just intense emotions the entire time.
Yeah,
and that has to have been
feel them.
Oh my God, Okoye, like it must have been exhausting as an actor to
No
work.
kidding.
I mean, in a good way, because you're doing a good thing and you're expressing all these things and what. But like just from a job standpoint, to go home at the end of the day, even though you've enjoyed what you've done, you just must be fucking done. Like you just must be absolutely exhausted because again, like. I think all of the performances from the main crew, Nakia as well. Yeah. I really enjoyed the Ramonda Nakia scenes. Like I thought those were really well done.
Yeah, me too. Actually, fun little thing. Because I was able to go back and watch. I saw this in theater, so because I was able to go back and watch it a second time before we chatted tonight, when Queen Ramonda visited the Haitian school, when she went to see Nakia that time to ask for help.
Yes, yeah.
There were 3 little kids that came up to greet her and basically asked her, "Are you here to see the headmistress?" The little boy was actually...
Oh, was it?
Young Prince T'Challa, yeah.
T'Challa, okay.
As soon as he ran up, I went, oh my goodness, I've seen him before. So it was kind of a nice little intro halfway through the movie that, we didn't know who he was at first, but it was...
No.
That's probably why they gave him the line, because he was already an actor in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did Ramonda react to him? Did she?
They didn't make it obvious.
Yeah, because I kind of wonder, because you would think that she would be looking into like her grandson's eyes, going like, "You look like my son when he was 10." Like you'd think that would be something that they would have. I do want to watch it again to kind of take in a little bit more. But yeah, I just overall, like again at the top of this section, we just said watch it, 100% watch it. I know we've got some problems with it, but it's not, none of them break the movie. It doesn't make you want to say like don't watch it.
I think you and I need to get into the habit of preface. I think this is probably like the 6th time you and I have done this. We need to start prefacing it. Okay, we're gonna crap on this a little bit, but only because we liked it and wish that these parts had been addressed to make it perfect. So
yeah, oh yeah.
Or I should say, at least myself, I have a habit of picking on the little things.
If we're putting like Infinity War and Endgame at like the 9, 10 out of 10, I mean, I'm putting Wakanda Forever at a solid 7.5.
Yeah,
like it's up there, but it's like you said, it's a balance thing, and when you like something and like the characters this much, and I think there's a lot of the fandom obviously have, wanted to see some sort of love letter to Chadwick Boseman and T'Challa.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that they did that in the best way that they could, because there's only so much you can do when the actor unfortunately has passed away. But I think they did a bang up job for all the things that they set out to do, in that respect, in terms of like Shuri, Ramonda, T'Challa, and Okoye. I think they really, really nailed it. We're going to move on to the Internet Minute to wrap this up. That is, of course, brought to you by you. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you get value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. You can get access to the member-only Discord and access to things like the Bristacut bonus audio sessions. Special thanks out to Bean Counter patrons Cosmic and Smurf588. Thanks so much for your support of this episode. Patron count is at 28. That's up 1 from the last time we recorded.
Woo-hoo.
Our goal each time we record is to have at least one more patron than the previous episode. If you would like to be patron number 29, zoning in on that big 30, visit patreon.com/The Citadel Cafe. And as I teased at the top of the show, we've got Lego to talk about. This is your surprised face. I can hear it.
It's the Lego minute.
I can hear it through the podcast that you are aghast that Steven and I are going to talk about not one, but 2 Lego sets, one of which was just released this week. If you got $700 Canadian to spare and you happen to be a diehard Lord of the Rings fan, then you should check out the Lord of the Rings Rivendell set that just dropped. It is available for pre-order, I think, sometime soon. For VIP members, I believe it's coming out later on this year, releasing March 8th, I believe. It is 6,167 pieces, includes 15 minifigures. I'm sure you can figure out who they all are. The height is 16 inches, the width is 13 inches, and the depth or length of it is 20 inches. So it's a pretty large set. And it is also I'll call it a play set. Like, it's not like a big model. It's more like a condensed, let's take a bunch of really key moments from the movie and design it into something a little bit more kind of like Lego friendly, so to speak.
Yeah.
It does, however, join the top 10 biggest Lego sets ever made. So it's in there with the Titanic, the Eiffel Tower, the UCE Millennium Falcon, like the AT-AT Collector's Edition one. There's all kinds of these large sets that are up in the, like 6,000 to 10,000 pieces range. And this puts it in the top 10. It is an open back set, so it's not completely finished in the round. There are lots of details from the broken Narsil, Frodo's bed, where he is nursed back to health after being stabbed by the Morgul blade, Elven Forge, where Narsil is reforged, tiled roofs, custom trees, streams, and waterfalls, and of course the Council of Elrond is the key centerpiece where all of your minifigs can sit around and yell at each other about who's going to take the ring back to Mordor. I'm sure there are lots of people that would be interested in getting this as diehard Lord of the Rings fans. I've seen people on TikTok that are Lego enthusiasts and also obviously have received early copies of this to help promote it. And I've not seen it put together, but the box is pretty big. But the price point for me is what I go, oof. I don't know. When stuff starts to come close to the cost of my rent, I'm just like, no, I can't justify that.
Especially in Canada, when you look at that with tax on it, you're getting close to.
No, you're up there. You're very much up there. It's beautiful. It's really well done. I love the custom trees, the roofing, and the design.
The
of
roof
everything
is
really
amazing.
cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I think the only thing that has me really kind of standoffish on it is the open back. Like, I kind of wish it had a full removable roof as opposed to like the open back, because on one hand it's going to look really cool up against a wall, but on the other hand there's a lot of detail in those open rooms. Like, there's Frodo's bedroom, there's the Narsil thing, there's the library, there's all these different rooms that you can see on the back, and it's strange that it just doesn't look as good from that side, I don't think.
I mean, you could have, like, for that price, you could have dollhoused it in the sense, like, put a hinge on it.
There you go. Yeah.
You open it up.
Yeah. That would be I think a better solution. And it does look like it can be displayed in different pieces. Like, you don't have to assemble it. You can actually have like the council. You can have there's a gazebo. I think the gazebo is a famous kind of conversation between Elrond and Eowyn, I think. Arwen. And so there's lots of different movie moments, and it's very pretty. There's lots of really cool, like, curly detail in the architecture, and like minifigures, but they're stone statues. Like, stuff like that is super neat.
I like all of the things you mentioned, but just looking through the different pictures there's actually a part that has running water with a couple of waterfalls and like a bubbling brook at the bottom. And I think the pieces they use to make that like the water bubbling at the end there, that's pretty slick. So the nice translucent blue for the water, then just rounding the corner like it's going over another little waterfall, and it's that those bubbling pieces are pretty well thought out. And
the little stone bridge, like, really sharp stuff. Yeah, that looks like it leads down into the Elven Forge area, I think. Like, there's all kinds of really cool stuff. I like that they've broken the waterfall up. Like, it doesn't go like there's a rock that kind of sticks out in between the waterfalls. Like, it splits it in two. It's it's a beautiful set. It's just one of those things where the way that I have my Lego and the way that I design, the way that I display it, it's just like I think it's for the Lego collector, like it's for the people that have to have every Lego set that comes out.
So when you finally get that Lego room you've always wanted.
Yeah. And a budget for $700 Lego sets. Yeah. I think I misspoke. I think I said it was $699. It's $669. Not that it's a huge difference, but I was $30 off. That's my pick this week for folks that are interested. It is very cool to just ogle and look at. And I'm sure you will be seeing a lot of it on the internet soon as people start to receive it and build it, or the people that have the promotional sets ahead of release to help share it are going to be talking about it soon, I'm sure. What's your pick this week, my friend?
It is, get this, Lego.
Surprise.
Yeah, no, it's a Lego A-frame cabin. So it's coming in at $240, a little bit, pricey as well, but more of a reasonable pricey. It's a little over 2,000 pieces, 10 inches high, 9 inches wide, and 9 inches deep. I was going through the pictures of it, it's pretty darn slick. I've had conversations with some people, and they don't like the fact that, when Lego looks smooth, because it is Lego and they want the studs to show. But for me, I love it when they're actually able to take something that is Legos with the studs, with the building components, and then able to design something and build it that conceals that in a way to make it look that much more sophisticated. I think this does a pretty slick job of capturing and building an A-frame cabin. It looks pretty slick. And I think it's I'm trying to remember where it was. It's down at the bottom. I think it's the designer was, there it is, the quote. If I can't live in a real A-frame cabin, then I'm building one with Lego bricks.
I'm with you. I can respect a mix of stud surface and smooth plate surface. This, I think, has got a good mix where there are still some studs on the front and the back.
Yeah, but they're intentional.
Exactly. They're there not because they have to be. It's because the designer wants them to be. Yeah. And I think that even the studs on the roof, they feel like it's like where the roof you'd see the roof fasteners, or you'd see how the metal roof is attached in a real A-frame. I feel like those are all there on purpose. And I like it. It's again, the price point is murder for me at $239 for what it is, right? Like you're at half the cost of the Rivendell set we just mentioned. Or almost half the cost, 30%, and it's a quarter of the build. Like it's really small. So I don't know. And I think too, it's such a standalone thing.
Yeah,
because it's not a modular. Like you're not going to put this in your Lego city, right? Because it doesn't fit in your Lego city. It has to go up on the hill next to your Lego city, I guess.
Like comparing it to the other set, this actually is built so that it has those roofs you can take off. So it's the roofs are literally detachable, which allows you to go in and see all of the detail and play with the details on the inside. That's pretty cool. It feels like a very dense set. It's not. You're right. It's standalone and it's small, but it feels like there's a lot going on in this one.
Yeah, it still functions like the modular sets. Like all the modular sets, you can take the floors off of, and you can look inside for all the details and all that stuff for sure. Like that. I mean, I get that's how it was designed, and in a way, it's similar to like the Lego Ideas blacksmith. Where that doesn't fit in your Lego city either, but it's still a beautiful build. And it has a lot of attention to detail and all that kind of stuff. So these still have a place. I think I've just come to, I guess, look at Lego sets as like, where would I even put that? What, how do I display that? Everything that I've got is either sci-fi fantasy nostalgia, sci-fi nostalgia, none of it's fantasy, or like Star Wars ships, and so it's all kind of like standalone, but they all kind of thematically go together. Like it makes sense that I've got an Optimus Prime and a DeLorean and an X-Wing, like they all kind of speak to 80s kind of like childhood stuff.
And meanwhile, I've got a Vespa, Mini Cooper, and a VW van. So they're all kind of in the same...
Right, exactly.
I got a theme going.
Yeah, you got a theme going. And subconsciously, you sort of, like, I imagine you're looking at something like the Volkswagen bus, like as something that you'd like to build. Like that kind of a thing, whereas an A-frame may not... Well, actually, an A-frame might fit what you have with the Vespa and the Mini Cooper. And like, so it's hard to say. Like, and I don't want to poo-poo anybody that likes it at all. Like, I don't want to sound like that. I find that when Lego price points get to where they are, you start to have to like really say, nope, I have to not be excited about this for good reasons, because otherwise you're just drooling over everything. And I think that this is, it's one of those things that there's certainly a lot of people out there, again, that will find this very, very appealing. Unfortunately, that is where we're going to wrap up this episode of the Citadel Cafe. If you want more information about the show and links to some of the things that Stephen and I talked about, you can find them at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and you can email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Keep those coming. We really enjoy them. Find the show by name on Twitter. That's if Twitter allows us to tweet more than once a day. More on that some other time. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, even YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. Leave us a rating and a review while you're out there, too. It's one of the best ways for the podcast to reach new listeners. Word of mouth is also the easiest way to support the show. Just tell a friend about the Citadel Cafe and where they can go to listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am up to online at joelduggan.com. That includes links to my other podcast about Minecraft, The Spawn Chunks, at thespawnchunks.com. You can also follow me on Twitch and social media at Joel Duggan. I'm very easy to find. Twitch is normally scheduled 3 days a week, but I'm hitting 4 to 5 lately. Lots of Minecraft happening, and Lego on Fridays, building that NASA shuttle Discovery. Stephen, where can people find you online?
Steven ESC on a lot of social media, but mostly hanging out on Twitch when I can get there. And so just finished off, as I mentioned, the Mini Cooper last stream, and I'm torn. I'm either going to go into Portal 2 next because my sons have been really egging me on to do that, or I'm going to start on the Volkswagen Beetle soon. So we'll see. Twitch.tv/StevenESC, and that's Steven with a PH.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.